I stood frozen outside my daughter's home office, my hand still reaching for the doorknob. Through the crack, I heard Diane's voice, cold and calculated, nothing like the loving girl who used to climb into my lap. The train leaves tomorrow morning. Dad will be gone by noon. One-way ticket. The facility in Montana is ready. Once the power of attorney kicks in, everything transfers. He'll never come back. My heart shattered, but my mind cleared. All right, sweetheart. We'll do this your way. The alarm went off at 5 in the morning, and I was already awake. I had been awake most of the night, lying in the guest bedroom of Diane's house, staring at the ceiling and thinking about what I had heard. My daughter wanted me gone, permanently. The word kept echoing in my skull. Never come back. Never come back. I am 67 years old. My name is Gus, and for 43 years, I worked as a mechanical engineer in Pittsburgh. I built a good life. I married Patricia, the love of my life, and we raised 2 children in a modest house in the suburbs. I worked hard, saved carefully, and when I sold my engineering consulting firm 2 years ago, I walked away with $4 million. Not bad for a kid who grew up in a steel town with nothing but a good mind and willing hands. Patricia died 3 years ago. Cancer took her in 6 brutal months, and when she was gone, I felt like half of myself had been carved away. But I kept going. I stayed in our house, maintained the garden she loved, visited her grave every Sunday. I thought I was doing okay. I thought my kids would be proud of how I was handling things. I packed my single suitcase that morning, just like Diane had instructed. 1 suitcase for a 5-day luxury train journey across the country. She had been so insistent about it. Dad, you need this. You need to relax, see the country, get away from that empty house. Trust me, this will be good for you. Her voice had been so caring, so concerned. I had believed her. Or I wanted to believe her. Right up until I heard the truth through that office door. Diane arrived at 6:30 with her husband Brad. He drove a black Mercedes SUV that cost more than my first house. Brad was a real estate developer, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and talked loudly on his phone about deals and margins. He had married my daughter 5 years ago, and I never quite warmed to him. There was something slick about Brad, something that reminded me of motor oil, slippery and hard to wash off. "Morning, Gus," Brad said, loading my suitcase into the back. He never called me Dad, always Gus, like we were business associates instead of family. "Big day, huh? You ready for your adventure?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I said. I kept my voice cheerful, slightly uncertain. The confused but grateful old man. It was a role I could play. Diane hugged me on the front step. She smelled like expensive perfume and mint gum. "I'm going to miss you, Daddy," she said into my shoulder. Her voice caught, like she was emotional. And maybe she was. Maybe some small part of her felt guilty about what she was doing. But not guilty enough to stop. The drive to the train station took 25 minutes. Brad kept checking his phone at red lights, typing quickly. Diane sat in the back seat with me, holding my hand. "The train is called the Grand American Express," she explained. 5 days from Pittsburgh to Seattle, then you connect to another line that goes through Montana. It's supposed to be beautiful. Private compartments, gourmet dining, observation cars. You're going to love it. "Sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I said. "You're so good to me." She squeezed my hand. I squeezed back and thought about betrayal. About how the people closest to you can decide you are inconvenient and make you disappear. Pittsburgh's train station still had that old-world grandeur, all marble floors and high ceilings. The Grand American Express sat on track 7, a gleaming silver snake of luxury cars. It looked like something from another era, polished and elegant. Diane walked me to the platform, carrying the envelope with my tickets and information. "Everything you need is in here," she said, pressing it into my hands. The envelope was thick, too thick for just train tickets. "Your tickets, your itinerary, information about the places you'll see. Just relax and enjoy yourself, okay? Don't worry about anything back here. Brad and I will take care of everything." "I bet you will," I thought. Out loud I said, "Thank you, baby girl. This means so much." She hugged me again, tighter this time. "I love you, Daddy. This is for the best. You'll see." Brad shook my hand, his grip firm and dismissive. "Have a great trip, Gus. We'll be in touch." They waited on the platform as I climbed aboard. A conductor in a crisp uniform helped me with my suitcase, directed me to compartment 7 in car 3. I found my way down the narrow corridor, the train swaying slightly beneath my feet. My compartment was small but beautifully appointed. A cushioned bench seat that converted to a bed, a tiny private bathroom, a window with heavy curtains. Luxury for the condemned. I sat on the bench and waited until I felt the train lurch into motion. Slowly, smoothly, we pulled away from the station. Through the window, I could see Diane and Brad still standing on the platform, watching. Brad had his arm around Diane's shoulders. They looked like concerned, loving family members seeing off their elderly father. The train rounded a bend, and they disappeared from view. I opened the envelope. The train tickets were on top, just as Diane had said. Beneath them were brochures about scenic routes and historic landmarks. And beneath that, in a separate folder, were the documents that told me everything. Commitment papers for Sunset Meadows Memory Care Facility in rural Montana. Medical reports, supposedly from my doctor, claiming I had advanced dementia with episodes of confusion, memory loss, and aggressive behavior. A durable power of attorney document with my signature at the bottom, except I had never signed it. The signature looked like mine, but it was forged. Someone had practiced. There was more. A letter from the facility, welcoming me as a new resident. A payment agreement, showing Brad's company had prepaid 6 months at $11,000 per month. A form giving the facility permission to administer medication as needed to control behavioral problems. And clipped to the back, a business card. Brad's business partner, someone named Gerald Finch, listed as the director of Sunset Meadows. I sat there holding those papers, and felt something cold settle into my chest. This was not just about getting rid of me. This was about money. My $4 million. My house. Everything I had worked my entire life to build. Diane and Brad had looked at me and seen a bank account with an inconvenient person attached. So they had created a solution. Make me disappear into a memory care facility in Montana, declare me incompetent, take control of everything through forged power of attorney. Clean and simple. The train rattled through the outskirts of Pittsburgh, past industrial parks and row houses. I tore the commitment papers into small pieces and flushed them down the toilet in my tiny bathroom. I kept only the medical reports with their obvious forgeries. Evidence. I needed evidence. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and called Walter. Walter Jenkins, my friend for 35 years, a retired attorney who had handled the sale of my business. The call went to voicemail. Of course it did. It was not even 7 in the morning. Walter, it's Gus, I said after the beep. I need some legal advice. It's urgent. Call me when you get this. I'm on a train, but I've got my phone. Please call. I hung up and sat on the bench, watching Pennsylvania countryside roll past the window. Green hills and small towns, farmland and forests. America in all its ordinary beauty. I was supposed to enjoy this view for 5 days, never knowing I was riding toward a prison. But now I knew, and knowing changed everything. The question was, what could I do about it? The train had been moving for about an hour when someone knocked on my compartment door. I opened it to find a man in his mid-30s, stocky build, wearing khaki pants and a polo shirt. He had a friendly face and carried a small medical bag. "Mr. Gus?" he said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus. Your daughter hired me to help you during the journey. I'm a licensed practical nurse. Just here to make sure you're comfortable and have everything you need." I shook his hand and felt my stomach drop. Of course Diane would not just put me on a train and hope for the best. She would make sure I had an escort. Someone to watch me. Someone to make sure I actually made it to Montana. "That's very thoughtful of her," I said, keeping my voice warm. "But I'm fine, really. I don't need any help." "Oh, I'm sure you're doing great," Marcus said, his smile never wavering. "But your daughter wanted someone along just in case. She mentioned you've been having some confusion lately? Some memory problems?" There it was, the narrative they were building. Gus is confused. Gus has memory problems. Gus needs supervision. "Did she?" I said vaguely. "I don't really remember that." I let the irony hang there. Marcus chuckled, like I had made a joke. "Well, that's what I'm here for, to help with anything you need. I've got the compartment right next door, number 8. If you need me at any time, day or night, just knock." "I appreciate that, Marcus. Very kind." He lingered in the doorway, glancing past me into my compartment. Checking on me already, making sure everything was in order. "The dining car opens for lunch at noon," he said. "Would you like me to come get you? We can eat together, get to know each other." It was not really a question. "That sounds nice," I said. When he finally left and I closed the door, I sat back down heavily. They had thought of everything. I was not just on a train to Montana. I was under observation. Marcus would watch me, report back to Diane, make sure I did not do anything unexpected. And if I did, if I tried to run or cause problems, he had that medical bag. I had seen the shape of medication vials inside when he shifted his weight. I could play along, act confused and harmless, or I could try to fight. But fighting would just confirm their story. Aggressive behavior, paranoid delusions. All symptoms of the dementia they had invented for me. I decided to play along. For now. At noon, Marcus knocked on my door, and we walked together to the dining car. The train had filled up at a stop in Harrisburg. The dining car hummed with conversation, the clink of silverware on china, white tablecloths, and polished wood paneling. It really was beautiful, in an old-fashioned way. Marcus and I were seated at a table for 4. 2 other passengers joined us, an older couple, probably in their 70s, who introduced themselves as Harold and Judith from Baltimore. They were taking the train to visit their daughter in Oregon. "And where are you gentlemen headed?" Judith asked pleasantly. "Montana," Marcus said before I could answer. "Gus here is going to a wonderful facility in Montana. His daughter arranged it. It's like a resort, really. Very peaceful." Harold nodded approvingly. "That sounds lovely. Good for you, doing something like that at your age. Staying active." I smiled and said nothing. Marcus had positioned himself as my spokesman. Anything I said would be filtered through his interpretation. During the meal, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back through the corridor, I passed Marcus's compartment. The door was slightly ajar. I glanced inside and saw his medical bag sitting open on the bench. Inside were pill bottles. I could not read all the labels from the corridor, but I saw enough. Lorazepam, haloperidol, sedatives and antipsychotics. Medications to keep someone quiet and compliant. In case Mr. Gus becomes agitated, I imagined Diane telling him. In case he becomes difficult. I kept walking, my appetite gone. That afternoon, I dozed in my compartment. The train swayed gently, a rhythmic rocking that should have been soothing. Instead, I kept startling awake, wondering if Marcus was outside my door. Around 4 in the afternoon, I woke from an uneasy sleep and reached for my phone. The screen lit up, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. My banking app showed a notice, "Account access restricted pending investigation." I opened the app with shaking hands. All 3 of my accounts, checking and 2 savings, showed the same message. Frozen. Inaccessible. I called the bank's customer service number. After 15 minutes on hold, a representative came on the line. "I'm calling about my accounts," I said. "They've been frozen. I need to know why." The representative typed for a moment. "I see a flag here, Mr. Gus. There was a report filed this morning claiming potential elder financial exploitation. Your accounts have been temporarily frozen for your protection while we investigate." "Who filed the report?" "I can't disclose that information, sir, but it was filed by a family member concerned about suspicious activity on your accounts." "Diane." It had to be Diane. "There is no suspicious activity," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is a mistake. I need access to my accounts." "I understand your frustration, sir, but we have to take these reports seriously. The freeze will remain in place until the investigation is complete. That typically takes 7 to 10 business days. 7 to 10 days. By then I would be locked in a Montana facility, and Diane would have power of attorney." I hung up and checked my wallet. I had $87 in cash. I had 1 credit card, an old business account I rarely used. I tried logging into that account online. It still worked. The card was still active. Diane did not know about this one. It was a small mercy, but it was something. I sat there with my phone in my hand, trying to think. My money was frozen. I was under observation. I had a nurse with sedatives in the next compartment, and somewhere ahead of me, Montana waited like an open grave. That evening, Marcus brought dinner to my compartment. "Thought you might like to eat in tonight," he said. "Long day of travel. Must be tiring." "That's thoughtful," I said. The food was good, roasted chicken and vegetables, but I could barely taste it. Marcus sat with me while I ate, making small talk about the scenery, about how nice the train was, watching me. Always watching. After he left, I tried calling Walter again. Still no answer. I left another message, more urgent this time. That night, lying in the converted bed with the curtains drawn, I heard voices through the thin wall. Marcus was in his compartment, talking on the phone. "He's cooperative so far," Marcus said. His voice was muffled but audible. "Hasn't tried anything." "Yeah, I've got the meds if we need them. We should be fine until Montana. The facility director will handle the formal commitment once we arrive." A pause. "No, he hasn't figured anything out. Diane's right. He's pretty out of it. This is going to be easy money." I lay there in the dark, listening to the train rumble beneath me, and thought about how they saw me. Not as a person, but as a problem they had solved. Not as Gus, the engineer who had built a successful business from nothing, who had loved his wife for 40 years, who had raised 2 children and put them through college. Just as an old man, confused and helpless. They were going to learn differently. I stayed awake long into the night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the train. My phone sat on the tiny shelf beside my bed, its screen dark. No signal out here in the West Virginia mountains. No way to call for help. But I was not helpless. Not yet. I had been solving problems my entire life. Engineering was about finding solutions when none seemed obvious. About looking at systems and finding the weak points. Diane thought she had built a perfect trap. But every system has a weakness. Every plan has a flaw. I just had to find it. The train pulled into Cleveland at 10 in the morning on day 2. We had a 4-hour layover while they serviced the train and took on supplies. Marcus knocked on my door at 9:45. "We've got a long stop here," he said. "Would you like to stretch your legs? Walk around the station a bit?" This was my chance. Maybe my only chance. "That would be nice," I said. "These old legs get stiff sitting too long." We walked together down the platform and into Cleveland Station. It was a grand old building, all stone arches and high windows, recently renovated. Shops lined the main concourse, selling newspapers and coffee and travel necessities. Travelers hurried past with rolling suitcases, checking departure boards, calling out to family members. Marcus stayed close to my elbow, casual but watchful. We walked slowly through the concourse. He bought us both coffee at a small cafe. We sat on a bench and watched people pass. I waited. I needed him distracted, even for a minute. The call came at 10:30. Marcus's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. "I need to take this," he said. "Work stuff." "You okay here for a minute?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'll just sit here and enjoy my coffee." He walked a few feet away, turning his back to me for privacy. I saw my opening. I stood up, left my coffee on the bench, and walked quickly toward the station's main exit. Not running. Running would attract attention. Just an old man walking with purpose. I was 67, but I kept myself in decent shape. Gardening and daily walks had kept my legs strong. I made it 20 feet before I heard Marcus call out. "Gus? Gus? Where are you going?" I kept walking. Faster now. The exit was 50 feet away. Beyond it, Cleveland. Police stations. Lawyers. Safety. 30 feet. 20 feet. A woman stepped in front of me. She was in her 40s, professionally dressed in a gray pantsuit, carrying a leather briefcase. She smiled at me, the kind of smile that does not reach the eyes. "Mr. Gus?" she said. "I'm Dr. Stephanie Cross. Your daughter sent me." My heart sank. Marcus caught up, slightly out of breath. "Sir, you can't just wander off like that." I was worried. Dr. Cross kept smiling. "It's all right, Marcus. This is perfectly normal behavior. Patients with his condition often try to wander. It's part of the disease process." "I don't have a disease," I said, my voice hard. "I'm being kidnapped. My daughter is trying to steal my money. These people are taking me to Montana, against my will." Dr. Cross's smile grew sadder, pitying. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Marcus, could you get station security, please? I think we need some help here." 2 security guards arrived within minutes. Dr. Cross showed them her identification, her medical license. She opened the folder and showed them documents. I could see the forged medical reports, the diagnosis of dementia. "I'm a psychiatrist," she explained to the guards. "Mr. Gus is my patient. He has advanced dementia with paranoid delusions. His family arranged for him to be transported to a care facility, but as you can see, he's become confused and tried to leave. This is very common with dementia patients. They don't understand what's happening, and they panic." "That's not true," I said, looking at the guards. "Please listen to me. Those documents are forged. My daughter forged my signature on a power of attorney. She's trying to have me committed so she can steal my money. I'm not confused. I'm not sick. I need your help." The guards looked at me. One was young, maybe 25. The other was older, gray-haired. The older one's expression was kind but firm. "Sir," he said gently, "you need to calm down. We're just trying to help you." "I am calm," I said, keeping my voice level even though I wanted to shout. "I'm telling you the truth. Call my lawyer. His name is Walter Jenkins in Pittsburgh. He can verify everything I'm saying." Dr. Cross shook her head. "Paranoid delusions often involve conspiracy theories," she told the guards. "Family members trying to steal money. People plotting against them. It's textbook dementia behavior. His daughter is very concerned about him. That's why she hired both Marcus and myself, to ensure he makes it safely to the facility. The young guard spoke up. Can we see your identification, sir? I pulled out my wallet, showed them my driver's license. My hands were shaking now. I'm telling you the truth. Please, just make one phone call. Dr. Cross put her hand on my arm. Mr. Gus, I understand you're frightened, but you're safe. We're going to help you. Marcus and I are going to make sure you get to Montana where you can receive proper care. She turned back to the guards. Would you mind escorting us back to the train? I'm concerned he might try to run again. The guards agreed. They were polite about it, but they walked on either side of me as Dr. Cross and Marcus led the way back to the platform. I tried one more time. Please, I said to the older guard. Just call my lawyer. One phone call. That's all I'm asking. He looked uncomfortable. Sir, I'm sorry, but you're with medical professionals and they have documentation. I can't interfere with that. If you really believe something wrong is happening, you can file a complaint once you reach Montana. Once I reached Montana, it would be too late. They walked me back to the train. Other passengers stared. An old man being escorted by security. Poor thing, they were probably thinking. So confused. At the train, Dr. Cross opened her medical bag. I think we need to keep you calm for the rest of the journey, she said. This is going to help you relax. No, I said. I don't want any medication. I'm afraid I have to insist, she said. Her voice was still pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Your daughter gave me authorization. This is for your own safety. Marcus and the guards held me steady. Not roughly, but firmly. Dr. Cross pulled out a syringe and a small vial. She drew clear liquid into the syringe, tapped it to release air bubbles. Professional. Practiced. Please don't do this, I said. She injected me in the upper arm, right through my shirt sleeve. The needle pinched, and then there was pressure as the medication went in. There, she said, putting a small bandage over the injection site. That wasn't so bad, was it? You'll feel much better soon. The guards helped me back onto the train. Marcus and Dr. Cross walked with me to my compartment. By the time we got there, I could feel the drug taking effect, a fuzzy warmth spreading through my body. My thoughts were slowing down, like honey poured in cold weather. They helped me sit on the bench. Dr. Cross's face swam in front of me. If he tries anything else, she said to Marcus, we have authorization for stronger measures. His daughter has an emergency psychiatric hold order ready. One more incident, and we can have him committed immediately at the next stop. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick. The compartment tilted and swayed, not just the train's motion, the drug pulling me down. Marcus was saying something, but the words were muffled, coming from very far away. The last thing I remember before the darkness took me was Dr. Cross's voice, cold and businesslike. Keep him sedated for the rest of today. By tomorrow he'll be too scared to try anything again. Then nothing. I woke up in darkness. My mouth was dry. My head felt stuffed with cotton. The train was moving, the rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails. I had no idea how long I had been unconscious. Hours, at least. I lay there in the converted bed, still dressed, and felt despair settle over me like a weight. I had tried to escape and failed. Now they knew I was resistant. Now they would watch me even more closely. And I had shown them my hand. They knew I understood what was happening. I had made things worse. Through the wall, I heard Dr. Cross and Marcus talking in low voices. He's more aware than Diane said, Dr. Cross was saying. This isn't dementia. He knows exactly what's happening. Does that change anything? Marcus asked. Not really. We still have the documentation. No one's going to believe him over medical professionals with signed papers. But we need to be more careful. No more opportunities for him to run. And we sedate him at the first sign of trouble. What about the lawyer he mentioned? Walter Jenkins? I'll call Diane. Let her know. She can handle it on her end. For now, our job is just to get him to Montana. Once he's at the facility, it's out of our hands. I lay there listening, and understood how completely I was trapped. Every move I made, they countered. Every attempt to escape, they had a response. They had thought this through. They had prepared for resistance. The train rolled on through the night, carrying me closer to Montana with every passing mile. I woke on day 3 with a chemical hangover, my head pounding and my mouth tasting like old coins. The train was stopped. I pulled aside the curtain and saw Chicago outside my window. Union Station. We were taking on passengers. Someone knocked on my door. I knew before I opened it that things had changed. Marcus was there, but so was Dr. Cross. Good morning, she said brightly. We've made a slight adjustment to the arrangements. I'm going to be staying in this compartment with you for the rest of the journey. Marcus will take the room next door. She was carrying an overnight bag. This was not a suggestion. For my safety? I asked. My voice came out raspy. For everyone's safety, she corrected. She moved past me into the small space, set her bag on the bench. After yesterday, we think it's best if someone is with you at all times. I hope you understand. I understood perfectly. No more privacy. No more opportunities. Marcus appeared with his own bag and moved into my old setup next door. Dr. Cross efficiently converted the bench into sleeping arrangements. 2 narrow beds, one on each side of the compartment. She would sleep 5 feet away from me for the next 2 nights. There's a dining car breakfast, she said. Let's go eat. You must be hungry. I was not hungry. My stomach churned with anxiety and residual medication, but refusing would accomplish nothing. We walked to the dining car together, Dr. Cross's hand lightly on my elbow, guiding, controlling. Marcus followed behind us. I was flanked. At breakfast, I barely spoke. I pushed eggs around my plate and drank coffee that tasted like ashes. Dr. Cross made pleasant conversation with Marcus, discussing the scenery, the trip, anything but the truth of what was happening. An elderly couple at the next table smiled at us. The woman leaned over. "You're so lucky to have such attentive children," she said to me. "My son never calls." I opened my mouth to correct her, to tell her these were not my children, but Dr. Cross spoke first. "We're just glad we can help Dad," she said warmly. "He's been having some health issues lately. We want to make sure he's comfortable." The woman nodded sympathetically. "That's wonderful. You're a good daughter." I said nothing. What was the point? After breakfast, we returned to the compartment. The train pulled out of Chicago, heading west into Illinois farmland. Flat and endless under gray skies. Dr. Cross pulled out her tablet and worked on something, occasionally glancing up at me. Marcus stopped by twice during the morning to check on us. They were tag-teaming me. Constant supervision. Around noon, there was a commotion in the corridor. Raised voices. I heard Brad before I saw him. "Where's Gus?" he was saying. "Which compartment?" My son-in-law appeared in the doorway, filling the small space with his presence. He wore a sharp gray suit and expensive leather shoes. He looked like success, like money, like someone who got what he wanted. "Brad," Dr. Cross said, standing. "Diane said you might join us." "Couldn't let you have all the fun," Brad said. He looked at me, and his expression was hard to read. Concern? Satisfaction? "How are you doing, Gus?" "I heard about yesterday's incident in Cleveland. I tried to escape," I said flatly. "That's what you heard." Brad sighed, pulled Marcus's chair over from next door, and sat down. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Escape. You think we're holding you prisoner. Aren't you? We're helping you," he said. "Gus, I flew all the way out here because Diane is worried sick. She thinks maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should have explained things better before putting you on this train." "Explained what?" I asked. "Explained that you forged my signature on legal documents? Explained that you're stealing my money?" Brad's jaw tightened. "We're not stealing anything. We're protecting you." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, then turned the screen toward me. The images showed my house in Pittsburgh, but it was not my house as I had left it. It was chaos. Papers scattered across the floor, dishes piled in the sink, expired food on the counters, my bedroom in disarray, the bed unmade, clothes everywhere. "We went to check on your house after you left," Brad said. "This is what we found. Gus, you've been letting things go. You didn't even notice. That's not normal." "I cleaned that house before I left," I said. "It was spotless." "You remember it that way," Brad said gently. "But this is the reality. Look at this one." Another photo. My home office. File cabinets open, papers pulled out. Important documents scattered on the desk. "Unpaid bills," Brad said. 6 months of unpaid utility bills. Your electricity was about to be shut off. You didn't remember to pay them. That's a lie. "Is it?" He scrolled to another photo. A close-up of an envelope from the electric company. "Final notice." I stared at that photo and felt something crack inside me. Had I forgotten? No. I paid my bills online every month. But looking at that envelope, at the official red lettering, I felt doubt creep in. Was it possible? "We're not the bad guys here," Brad continued. "We found evidence that someone was stealing from you. Strange charges on your accounts. Money being moved around. That's why we had to freeze everything, to protect you." "What strange charges?" I demanded. "I've got them all documented," he said. "We'll go over everything once you're settled in Montana. But Gus, you need to understand. We're doing this because we care about you. Because Diane loves you, and she's terrified you're being taken advantage of. Dr. Cross nodded along. This is very common with cognitive decline, she said. Patients often don't recognize the signs themselves. They feel like they're functioning normally, but the reality tells a different story. I looked at the photos on Brad's phone and wanted to believe my own memory, but they had created just enough doubt. Had I really cleaned the house? Had I paid those bills? My mind felt fuzzy, uncertain. No, they were manipulating me. This was part of the plan. You staged those photos, I said. You went to my house and made it look that way. Brad shook his head sadly. Why would we do that? Gus, I know this is hard to accept. No one wants to admit they need help. But you do need help, and we're going to make sure you get it. He stood up, pocketed his phone. I'm flying to Montana separately. I'll meet you there. The facility is beautiful, really first rate. You're going to be comfortable there. And once we get your financial situation sorted out, once we figure out who's been stealing from you, you'll feel so much better. I promise. He left. The compartment felt smaller after he was gone. That evening, I sat by the window and watched Minnesota pass by in the twilight. Lakes and pine forests, America's heartland, beautiful and indifferent to my situation. Marcus brought dinner. I ate mechanically, not tasting anything. Dr. Cross prepared for bed early, changing in the tiny bathroom and emerging in pajamas. She climbed into her bed and pulled out a book. So normal, so domestic, like we were family traveling together. Get some sleep, she said. Long day tomorrow. I lay in my bed and listened to her breathe. Eventually, her breathing deepened and slowed. She was asleep. I pulled out my phone. Still no signal. We were too far from civilization, cutting through wilderness on our way west. I checked my email. Nothing from Walter. Nothing from anyone. I was alone. In the darkness, I heard voices from next door. Marcus was on the phone again. I pressed my ear to the wall. Everything's under control, he was saying. Dr. Cross has him completely managed. Yeah. Brad's visit helped. Shook him up pretty good. $50,000 each once the guardianship is final. Don't worry, this is locked down. The old man's not going anywhere. $50,000. That was the price of my betrayal. Marcus and Dr. Cross were getting $50,000 each to help Diane and Brad steal millions. I lay back down and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, we would cross into Montana. One more day. That was all I had left. I had tried to escape and failed. I had tried to tell the truth, and no one believed me. They had answers for everything, documentation for everything, explanations for everything. I was being erased, bit by bit, piece by piece. My money, my house, my identity, my freedom, all of it slipping away. And I could not stop it. Morning came too soon. I had slept poorly, waking every hour to the sound of the train and Dr. Cross's gentle snoring. Day 4. We were in Montana now, crossing the high plains under vast blue skies. 8 hours until we reached the station nearest to Sunset Meadows. 8 hours until I lost everything. Dr. Cross was cheerful at breakfast. Beautiful country, she said, gesturing at the window. Have you ever been to Montana before? No, I said. You'll love it. The facility is near Missoula, mountains, clean air. Very peaceful. Peaceful, like a grave. After breakfast, Dr. Cross suggested I spend some time in the observation car. You've been cooped up, she said. Some fresh perspective will do you good. I knew what she was doing, letting me see the landscape, accepting my fate, making the transition easier. But I agreed, because sitting in that cramped compartment was driving me mad. The observation car was at the rear of the train, all windows and comfortable chairs. A few passengers sat scattered around, reading or taking photos of the scenery. Dr. Cross sat a few rows behind me, watchful but giving me space. I chose a seat near the back and watched Montana roll past. It really was beautiful, vast, and empty and pure. I thought about Patricia, about how she would have loved this view. She always wanted to travel more. We had talked about taking a train trip someday, when I retired. Someday. Someday never came. A young woman sat down across from me. She was maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She had a laptop open and was typing quickly. Quite a view, she said without looking up. Yes, I agreed. She glanced at me, smiled. First time in Montana? First time. Me too. I'm headed to Seattle for graduate school. University of Washington. Starting their elder law program in the fall. Something in my chest tightened. Elder law. That sounds important, I said carefully. Dr. Cross was 3 rows back, possibly listening. I think so. I wrote my thesis on guardianship abuse. It's a huge problem. Family members taking advantage of elderly relatives, using the court system to gain control of their assets. It happens more than people realize. My heart was pounding. Really? Oh yes. The system is supposed to protect vulnerable, elderly people, but sometimes it's used as a weapon against them. False medical reports, forged documents, paid medical professionals willing to diagnose dementia that doesn't exist. Once someone is declared incompetent and a guardian is appointed, they lose all their rights. Can't vote, can't make decisions about their own life, can't even control their own money. It's like being erased. She said it so casually, not knowing she was describing my exact situation. I had to be careful. Had to be smart. That sounds terrible. How would someone in that situation fight back? She looked up from her laptop. Evidence, she said. Documentation. Witnesses. But the hard part is, once you're declared incompetent, no one takes you seriously. That's why it's so effective. The victim's own testimony is dismissed as confusion or delusion. So they're trapped. Usually. Unless they can get help before the guardianship is finalized. Or unless they have someone on the outside who believes them and is willing to fight. She smiled. That's why I'm going into elder law. Someone has to stand up for these people. I made a decision. A disparity one. My name is Gus, I said quietly. I'm on this train against my will. My daughter is trying to have me committed to a facility in Montana so she can take control of my money. The medical reports are forged. The power of attorney is forged. Everything is a lie. And no one will believe me because I'm 67 years old and they have a nurse and a psychiatrist saying I'm confused. The young woman stopped typing. She looked at me carefully. Are you serious? Completely serious. She glanced behind me at Dr. Cross, then back to me. Who's she? Dr. Stephanie Cross, a psychiatrist my daughter hired to make sure I reach Montana. There's also a nurse, Marcus. They've been watching me for 3 days. Yesterday, my son-in-law flew out to tell me my house is a mess, and I've been forgetting things, but I know that's a lie. They're building a case against me. The young woman closed her laptop. My name is Emily. Tell me everything. I told her. Quickly, quietly, keeping my voice low. I told her about overhearing Diane's phone call, about the forged documents, about the fake medical reports, and Brad's connection to the facility, about Marcus and Dr. Cross and the medication, and my failed escape attempt in Cleveland. I told her about my frozen accounts and my missing life. Emily listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. This is my contact information, she said. If you need anything, call me, email me, whatever. They're watching me constantly, I said. They search my things. They monitor my phone. She thought for a moment. Can you memorize a phone number? Yes. She told me her number twice. I repeated it silently, burning it into my memory. 7 digits. A lifeline. Here's what you need to do, Emily said. Document everything. Every interaction, every conversation. If you can get video or audio, even better. And if there's anyone on the outside who can help you, contact them. A lawyer, a friend, anyone. I've been trying to reach my lawyer, Walter. He's not answering. Keep trying. And Gus? She looked at me seriously. What they're doing is illegal. Fraud, elder abuse, possibly kidnapping. If you can prove it, they'll go to prison. But you have to survive long enough to prove it. Movement behind me. Dr. Cross was standing up. Emily saw her coming. Quickly, she said. I believe you, and I'm going to help you. Then Dr. Cross was there. Her smile pleasant but her eyes cold. Making friends? She asked me. Just chatting, I said. Dr. Cross looked at Emily. I hope my father-in-law hasn't been bothering you. He sometimes tells stories, gets a bit confused. Emily smiled back, equally pleasant, equally false. Oh, not at all. We were just admiring the scenery. Montana is gorgeous. Isn't it? Dr. Cross said. Come on, Gus. Time to head back to the compartment. I stood. Emily caught my eye for just a second and gave a tiny nod. I have your back. As we walked back through the cars, Dr. Cross said conversationally, That was an interesting conversation. She's a nice young woman, I said. I'm sure. But you need to be careful, Gus. Bothering strangers with your stories isn't appropriate. People might get the wrong idea. What idea is that? She stopped walking and looked at me directly. The idea that we're mistreating you. The idea that something improper is happening. You wouldn't want to upset your daughter by spreading rumors, would you? There it was. The threat underneath the pleasant words. No, I said. I wouldn't want to upset Diane. Back in the compartment, Dr. Cross made a phone call. I could hear her end of the conversation. He made contact with a passenger, a young woman, tried to tell her his story. No, I handled it. But he's still resistant. We need to be more careful. A pause. I understand. We'll keep him isolated until we arrive. She hung up and looked at me. Your daughter is concerned about your inappropriate behavior. Approaching young women, making up stories. It's going to be in my report. Another nail in my coffin. More evidence that I was confused, delusional, possibly dangerous. But I had Emily's phone number memorized. And she believed me. That was something. That was more than I'd had an hour ago. The train rolled on. 6 hours to the station, 6 hours left. I sat by the window and thought about evidence, about documentation, about fighting back. My phone was monitored. But Dr. Cross had a tablet. She kept it in her briefcase, which she left sitting on the bench when she went to the bathroom. It was a risk. A huge risk. At 3 in the afternoon, Dr. Cross excused herself. I'll be right back, she said. Marcus was next door. I was alone with her briefcase for maybe 90 seconds. I grabbed it, opened it quickly. The tablet was inside, along with folders of papers. My hands shook as I pulled out the documents. Contracts between Diane and Dr. Cross. Payment agreements. $50,000 upon successful placement of subject at Sunset Meadows. Terms and conditions. Medical reports with obvious forgeries. Signatures that did not quite match mine. Emails between Diane and Brad discussing getting rid of the old man and liquidating the assets. All of it. The entire conspiracy in one briefcase. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Snap, snap, snap. Document after document. The phone's camera clicked softly. Then I opened Dr. Cross's tablet. It was not password protected. I found her email, scrolled quickly. More conversations with Diane. Plans. Strategies. Contingencies. I sent the photos to my own email. To Walter's email. And I typed in Emily's number from memory and sent them to her phone. Send. 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 I heard footsteps in the corridor. I shoved everything back into the briefcase, closed it, put it back exactly where it had been. Dr. Cross opened the door just as I sat back down by the window. She looked at me, looked at her briefcase. Something in her expression changed. Did you touch my briefcase? She asked. No, I said. She opened it, checked inside. The tablet was there, but she could tell it had been moved. The folders were not quite aligned the way she had left them. Gus, she said slowly. What did you do? Nothing, I said. My heart hammered. She pulled out her tablet, checked the recent activity, saw the photos had been accessed, saw the email sent. Her face went pale. Then red. You sent files from my tablet. I don't know how to use a tablet, I said. You said yourself I'm confused. She grabbed her phone, called Diane. Your father just accessed my confidential files. He sent photos of the documents. To his lawyer and to someone else. We have a problem. A serious problem. I could hear Diane's voice through the phone, high and panicked. Dr. Cross hung up. She looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me. Fear of consequences. You've made a very stupid mistake, she said. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Dr. Cross told him what happened. We need to move faster, Marcus said. We can't wait for Missoula. Diane has authorization for emergency psychiatric commitment, Dr. Cross said. We're coming up on Helena in 2 hours. We'll have local authorities meet us there. They'll take him directly to a hospital psychiatric ward. Once he's committed under emergency hold, those files won't matter. He's just a mentally ill man making accusations. What about the people he sent them to? Marcus asked. Diane's handling the lawyer. She'll say her father has been sending bizarre emails, evidence of his deteriorating mental state. As for the other person, probably just some random passenger. It won't matter. They were panicking. I had forced their hand. But I had also made things worse for myself. Instead of reaching the facility in Missoula, where there might be some process, some oversight, I was going to disappear into a hospital psychiatric ward in Helena. I had 2 hours. I went to the bathroom, locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. I pulled up Walter's contact and typed out a message. Helena, Montana, hospital psychiatric commitment in 2 hours. Emergency. Photos sent to your email show guardianship fraud. I'm being kidnapped. Help. Gus. I sent it. Through the monitoring app, I knew Diane would see the message. But I was counting on that. I was counting on her panicking even more. People make mistakes when they panic. I came out of the bathroom. Dr. Cross was on the phone with Diane again. I heard her say, "He just tipped his lawyer. Yes, he knows about Helena. We need to move faster." The train raced through Montana wilderness, mountains rising in the distance. Helena was ahead, and whatever happened there would determine everything. I sat by the window and watched the landscape blur past, and thought about Patricia, about the life we had built, about how I had promised her I would be okay after she was gone. "I'm trying," I told her silently. "I'm trying so hard." 2 hours until Helena. 2 hours until I lost. Unless Walter had gotten my message. Unless Emily was really going to help. Unless I had one more move left. The train began to slow as we approached Helena. Through the window, I could see the station coming into view. And on the platform, I could see them waiting. An ambulance. 2 police officers. The trap was set. Dr. Cross stood up, gathering her things. "Time to go, Gus." Marcus appeared in the doorway. Together, they flanked me. "I'm not going," I said. It was a useless protest, but I had to say it. "You don't have a choice," Dr. Cross said. She had a folder in her hand. The commitment order, her ticket to making me disappear. The train came to a complete stop. Other passengers were gathering their bags, preparing to disembark or stretch their legs during the layover. Normal people doing normal things, unaware that a man was about to be erased. Marcus helped me stand. My legs felt weak. "Come on, Mr. Gus. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." They walked me toward the exit. I could see the ambulance through the window, its lights not flashing but present, waiting. The police officers stood with a hospital administrator in a white coat. Everything official. Everything legal. Everything wrong. We reached the door. The conductor opened it. Cool Montana, air rushed in. I stepped onto the platform. And then I heard a voice I never expected to hear. "Stop right there." I turned. Walter. My friend Walter, 73 years old, leaning heavily on a cane but standing firm. He was here. He had come. With him was Emily, the young woman from the observation car. And behind them, 2 people in dark suits with FBI credentials hanging around their necks. My heart nearly stopped. "Walter?" I said. My voice cracked. "I got your message, Gus," Walter said. He looked tired but determined. "And I got the photos. All of them." One of the FBI agents, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, stepped forward. She showed her badge to Dr. Cross. "Special Agent Karen Walsh, FBI. Dr. Cross, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder fraud, falsifying medical documents, and conspiracy to kidnap." Dr. Cross went pale. "You can't. I have authorization. Legal authorization." "Based on forged documents," Agent Walsh said. "We've seen the evidence, the forged power of attorney, the falsified medical reports, the email communications between you and Diane about the payment scheme. You're done." The second FBI agent, a younger man, moved toward Marcus. "Marcus Thompson, you're also under arrest." Marcus started to back up, but the police officers, the same ones who had been there to take me into custody, now moved to block his escape. They had switched sides. "How?" Dr. Cross said. She was looking at me with something like horror. "How did you manage this?" Walter answered for me. "Gus sent me photos of your entire operation. I didn't just call local police. I called my former law partner, who now works in the Pittsburgh FBI field office. He brought in the white-collar crime unit. Then Emily here," he gestured at the young woman, "contacted her mother." Emily stepped forward, smiling. "My mother is Judge Catherine Morrison, federal judge for the District of Montana. When I saw those documents Gus sent me, I called her immediately. She authorized emergency action." Agent Walsh continued. "We've been tracking your train for the last 8 hours. The documents show a pattern of conspiracy. But there's more." She looked at me. "Mr. Gus, your daughter and her husband aren't just targeting you. Sunset Meadows facility has been under federal investigation for 6 months. Medicaid fraud. They've been placing elderly people against their will, filing false Medicaid claims, and splitting the money with family members. You're the 8th victim we know about. 2 of them died in that facility." The platform seemed to tilt. 8 victims. People like me, erased and forgotten. "Brad and Diane have done this before?" I asked. "They perfected the system," Agent Walsh said. "Find elderly people with assets, create false medical records, commit them to the facility, take control of their estates, liquidate everything. Brad's business partner owns the facility. They split the proceeds. It's been running for 3 years. Dr. Cross was shaking her head. I want a lawyer. You'll get one, Agent Walsh said. Marcus, you too. You're both going to need very good lawyers. They handcuffed them both. Other passengers on the platform were watching now, phones out, recording. The scene was chaos. But I felt something loosen in my chest. Something that had been wound tight for 4 days. I had won. Agent Walsh turned to me. Mr. Gus, we need you to come to the FBI field office and give a formal statement. Can you do that? Yes, I said. Absolutely. There are agents in Pittsburgh right now, arresting your daughter and her husband. They'll be charged with federal elder abuse, fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. The evidence you gathered was crucial. Those photos, those emails, they give us everything we need. Walter came over and put his hand on my shoulder. You did good, Gus. You didn't give up. I tried to call you, I said. So many times. I was on a fishing trip in the Adirondacks. No cell service for 3 days. When I finally got your messages and saw those photos, I knew this was big. I made the right calls. FBI moved fast, once they saw what they had. Emily approached. I'm glad you're okay, she said. When you told me your story in the observation car, I knew immediately what was happening. I've studied too many cases like this. I'm just glad we got to you in time. 2 hours, I said. You got to me with 2 hours to spare. That's all we needed, she said. They took Dr. Cross and Marcus away in police cars. The ambulance left empty. Agent Walsh asked me to come with her to the field office. As we walked to her car, I looked back at the train. It sat there gleaming in the afternoon sun, beautiful and deadly. I had ridden it for 4 days into hell, but I had come out the other side. At the FBI office in Helena, I gave my statement. It took 3 hours. I told them everything, from the moment I overheard Diane's phone call to the moment Walter appeared on that platform. They recorded it all, took notes, asked clarifying questions. The other victims? I said. The 7 before me? What happened to them? Agent Walsh looked grim. 2 died at the facility. Natural causes officially, but we're investigating. 5 are still alive. They were drugged, kept compliant. Their families liquidated their assets and then just left them there. When Medicaid claims were filed, the facility and the families split the money. It's a sophisticated operation. Can they be freed? I asked. The ones still alive? We're working on it. Emergency guardianship hearings, getting the conservatorships reversed. It'll take time, but yes, they'll be freed. And their families will go to prison. I thought about those 5 people, trapped in Montana, thinking they had been abandoned. No one coming for them. No one believing them. I want to help, I said. However I can. You already have, Agent Walsh said. Your evidence broke the case wide open. Without it, we might never have had enough to move. You saved yourself, and you saved them. That night, I stayed in a Helena hotel. Walter stayed too, in the room next door. We ordered room service and sat in my room eating mediocre steaks and good whiskey. Patricia would be proud of you, Walter said. I felt tears sting my eyes. I hope so. She would be. You fought back. You didn't just accept it. That took courage, Gus. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Walter said. It's acting despite fear. You did that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. 2 old men who had been through something neither of us expected. What happens now? I asked. Trials. Lots of trials. Federal charges, probably state charges too. Your daughter and Brad are looking at serious prison time. 15, maybe 20 years. Dr. Cross and Marcus, probably 10. The facility director, he's the mastermind. He'll get the longest sentence. And my money? My house? All frozen as evidence for now. But it'll be returned to you. You'll get everything back. The forged power of attorney is void. You were never incompetent. You're free, Gus. Free. The word felt strange. 4 days ago I had been free and hadn't appreciated it. Now I understood what freedom meant. The ability to make your own choices. To live your own life. To not disappear. 3 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom in Pittsburgh. The place was packed with media, with other victims' families, with prosecutors and lawyers and FBI agents. This was the trial everyone had been waiting for. Diane sat at the defense table in an orange prison jumpsuit. Next to her, Brad, in his own jumpsuit. They did not look at each other. According to Walter, they had turned on each other almost immediately, each trying to cut a deal by blaming the other. Behind them sat Dr. Cross and Marcus, also in orange. And at a separate table, Gerald Finch, the facility director, the mastermind of the whole operation. The trial had lasted 2 weeks. I had testified for 6 hours, walking the jury through everything that happened. Other victims testified too, those who could. One man, 72 years old, described being drugged for 8 months while his son sold his house and emptied his bank accounts. A woman, 69, told about watching through a medicated haze as her daughter cleaned out her jewelry and art collection. The jury had deliberated for 4 days. Today was sentencing. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Harriet Stone, looked down at the defendants. This court has heard extensive testimony about a conspiracy to defraud and abuse vulnerable elderly citizens, she said. The crimes committed here are particularly heinous because they exploit the trust inherent in family relationships and the legal systems designed to protect the vulnerable. She looked at Diane. Miss Diane Thompson, you betrayed your father in the most fundamental way. You looked at the man who raised you and saw only a source of money. You conspired to erase him, to lock him away, to steal everything he worked for. The evidence shows this was not an act of desperation, but of calculated greed. Diane kept her eyes down. You are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. You will also be required to pay full restitution to your father and the other victims. 15 years. Diane would be 62 when she got out. If she got out, the judge turned to Brad. Mr. Brad Thompson, you masterminded this scheme. The evidence shows you recruited the medical professionals. You created the false documentation. You owned financial interest in the facility where victims were imprisoned. You are the primary architect of these crimes. You are sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release, with full restitution to all victims. 20 years. Dr. Cross got 12 years. Marcus got 8. Gerald Finch, the facility director who had done this to dozens of elderly people over multiple years, got 25. When it was over, when they were all led away in chains, I stood in the courthouse hallway and felt hollow. Justice had been served, but it did not feel like victory. It felt like loss. Diane was my daughter. I had held her when she was born, taught her to ride a bike, walked her down the aisle at her wedding, and she had tried to erase me. How do you reconcile that? Walter found me in the hallway. You okay? I don't know, I admitted. Takes time, he said. You can't process something like this quickly. Over the following weeks, I tried to put my life back together. My bank accounts were unfrozen. My house, which had been staged to look like a disaster, was returned to me. I had it professionally cleaned and repaired, but I could not live there anymore. Too many ghosts, too many memories, now tainted. I sold it. Got a good price, actually, and I used some of that money to relocate. I moved to Colorado, to a small house in a quiet neighborhood near Colorado Springs, mountains in the distance, clean air, a fresh start, and I reconnected with my son. I had not mentioned Thomas before, because our relationship had been broken for years. Diane had poisoned it, telling Thomas that I was difficult, that I was mean to her, that I favored him over her, and she had suffered for it. Thomas had believed her lies and pulled away. We spoke maybe twice a year, strained conversations that went nowhere. But after the trial, after the truth came out, Thomas called me. We talked for 3 hours. He apologized for believing Diane. I apologized for not fighting harder to maintain our relationship. We both cried. Now he visits once a month with his wife and my 2 grandchildren, ages 8 and 10. The kids call me Pop Pop. They climb on my furniture and ask endless questions and fill my house with noise and life. This is what I almost lost. This connection. This family. Not blood family, but real family. The kind that shows up. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. It came from the federal prison where Diane was serving her sentence. I held it for a long time, just staring at my name written in her handwriting. Thomas was visiting that day. Are you going to open it? He asked. I sat on my porch with the mountains visible in the distance and thought about it. Did I want to know what she had to say? Would it be an apology? A justification? More manipulation? Maybe someday, I said. But not today. Today I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I tore the letter in half without opening it. Then I dropped it in the recycling bin. Thomas looked at me. You don't want to know what she said? No, I said. I really don't. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. She made her choices. She chose money over her father. She chose greed over love. I can't forgive that. Maybe I should be a bigger person. Maybe I should turn the other cheek. But I'm 67 years old, and I've earned the right to cut toxic people out of my life, even if they're my daughter. Thomas nodded slowly. I understand. I can't forgive her either. She tried to hurt you. She tried to erase you. But she failed, I said. That's the important part. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still me. We sat in silence for a while, watching the kids play in the yard. They were building something with sticks and rocks, some elaborate fort that made sense only to them. You testified before Congress, Thomas said, about guardianship reform. I had. 6 months after my trial, I was invited to Washington to speak, before a Senate committee, about elder abuse and guardianship corruption. I told my story. I showed them the documents. I explained how easy it was for someone with bad intentions to weaponize the legal system against vulnerable people. The committee had listened. Legislation was being drafted. New protections for the elderly. Stricter oversight of guardianship proceedings. Requirements for independent medical evaluations. It was a small change in a big system, but it was something. The other victims, I said, the ones from the facility, they're all free now. All 7 of the surviving victims had been released from Sunset Meadows, and their fraudulent guardianships had been dissolved. 2 of them had family members who welcomed them back. 5, like me, had been betrayed so completely that they had no family to return to. Those 5 were placed in legitimate care facilities with proper oversight. I visited them when I could. We had formed a strange kind of family, bound by shared trauma and survival. You saved them, Thomas said. I saved myself, I corrected. And in doing so, I happened to save them too. But I didn't start out trying to be a hero. I just refused to disappear. That was the real lesson I had learned. Not about trust, or betrayal, or family. Those lessons were bitter and painful and obvious. The real lesson was simpler: refuse to be erased. They had tried to make me disappear. Diane, Brad, Dr. Cross, Marcus, all of them. They had created a perfect trap. False documents, medical professionals willing to lie, a legal system ready to accept their story. They had money and a plan, and confidence that it would work. But they had underestimated me. They saw an old man, vulnerable and confused. They did not see the engineer who had spent 43 years solving problems. They did not see the husband who had fought to save his wife from cancer, even when the doctors said it was hopeless. They did not see the father who had raised 2 children through economic hardship and personal struggles. They saw a victim. I refused to be one. At 67, drugged and discredited, trapped on a train heading toward permanent imprisonment, I could have given up. Many people would have. Many people did. But I used my mind. I used the skills I had developed over a lifetime. I gathered evidence. I found allies. I took calculated risks. And when the system trapped me, I used the system itself to break free. Age had made me vulnerable, but experience had made me dangerous. I think about that a lot now, about how society sees elderly people as weak, as confused, as easy targets. And sometimes we are. Our bodies betray us. Our minds sometimes fog. We become dependent on others for help, and that dependency can be exploited. But we are also survivors. We have lived through decades of challenges. We have accumulated wisdom and skills and resilience. We should never be underestimated. That is what I want people to understand, especially those who might be going through something similar. If you are being targeted, if someone is trying to take your autonomy, or your assets, or your life, fight back. Document everything. Find allies. Trust your instincts. And refuse, absolutely refuse, to disappear quietly. Now, sitting on my porch in Colorado with my son beside me and my grandchildren playing in the yard, I understand what Patricia would have wanted for me. Not forgiveness for Diane. Not reconciliation with people who tried to harm me. But this peace. This new family. This hard-won freedom to live my remaining years on my own terms. I am still here. I am still standing. And every morning I wake up in this little house with mountains visible through the bedroom window. I know I won. Not because I destroyed my daughter. That was her choice. But because I refused to be erased. That is the only victory that matters. They say you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I am 67 years old, and I learned the most important trick of all: how to fight for myself, how to refuse to disappear quietly, how to turn the trap around on the people who set it. Not bad for an old engineer who was supposed to spend his final years locked in a Montana facility, drugged and forgotten. I am still here. Every day is a gift. Every morning is a victory. and I will never, ever take my freedom for granted again. If you or someone you know is facing a similar situation, please remember, you are not powerless. You are not helpless. You have rights, and there are people who will fight for you. Reach out to elder law attorneys. Contact Adult Protective Services. Find advocates. Tell your story to anyone who will listen. And, most importantly, refuse to accept that this is just how things have to be. You deserve dignity. You deserve respect. You deserve to live your life free from exploitation and abuse. Never forget that. Have you or a loved one ever faced a situation where family members tried to take advantage during a vulnerable time? How did you protect yourself or others? I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling right now. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking this video and sharing it with others who might need to hear it. And if you want to hear more stories about overcoming injustice and fighting back against betrayal, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brings you some comfort, some strength, or at least the knowledge that you are not alone. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never let anyone make you disappear. Take care of yourselves and each other.